Hello students, welcome back to TLS. So the topic which we are going to discuss today is human digestion. Now what is digestion? So digestion means to break down the complex food that we eat into simpler molecules. Right? How will the food be broken in our body? So the food that we eat will be broken down into simpler molecules with the help of enzymes that is present in our body. Right? That is called digestion. So there are different steps of digestion and we will see how and where and in what way digestion is taking place in our body. So let's start. So today we are going to discuss is human digestion. So the topic which we are going to discuss today is human digestion. So the first part from where the human digestion starts is number one, that is mouth or buccal cavity. Understood? So the digestion starts from the mouth itself. The moment we intake food, understood? Whatever food we intake it with the help of our mouth, right? So the first part of the body where digestion starts is your mouth, right? So in the mouth, when the digestion starts, what will happen in the mouth? What are the things which are present in the mouth? Understood? So in the mouth, there is a gland which is called salivary gland, understood? Now this salivary gland produces two things. What are those two things which is produced by the salivary gland? The two things which are produced by the salivary gland is, number one is the saliva, saliva, and the second is salivary amylase. Now this salivary amylase is an enzyme. So how will we detect that this is an enzyme? So when we see the name of salivary amylase, it ends with the letter ASE, right? So whenever you see a word which ends with the letter ASE, most probably it is an enzyme. Understood? So in the mouth there is a gland called salivary gland which secretes two things, saliva and salivary amylase, which is an enzyme. Now, what is the function of saliva and what is the function of salivary amylase? The function of saliva is nothing but to mix with the food and make it transport easier, right? Means when we intake food, the saliva which is secreted from the salivary gland will mix with the food, and it will, after mixing with the food, it will make the passage of the food smoother when it moves down to the stomach, right? Now, what is the function of salivary amylase enzyme? Since it is an enzyme, so basically the function of enzyme is nothing but to break down complex substances to simpler substances, right? So when we intake food, the food may contain different things like like proteins, carbohydrates, fats. All these things are present in the food, right? So whatever we consume, suppose in that food, if starch is present, so this salivary amylase, what does it do? It breaks down the starch. Means this is starch which is present in your food that we intake. This amylase will break down starch into glucose. Understood? So starch is a complex sugar, and this complex sugar will be broken down into simpler sugar with the help of the enzyme amylase. Is it clear? So this is the scenario that takes place in your mouth. Now once this is over, the food will move. Now the food will move from your mouth to the stomach. But from the mouth, it will move to the stomach. Right? But from the mouth to the stomach, there is a passage. This passage which takes the food from the mouth to the stomach is called esophagus. Esophagus, also known as food pipe. Is that clear? Understood? So when the food from the mouth will be taken to the stomach with the help of esophagus, which is also known as the food pipe. Understood? Now once the food reaches the stomach, once the food reaches the stomach, in the stomach there is a gland called gastric gland. Understood? Now this gastric gland secretes three things. Secretes means it releases three things. What are those things? Number one is mucus. Number two is HCl, which is an acid called hydrochloric acid, right? And the third thing which is secreted by gastric gland is pepsin, right? Now this pepsin is an enzyme. So in the stomach an enzyme is also secreted called pepsin. Now what are the function of mucus, HCl and pepsin, right? So the mucus is secreted first. What does mucus do? Mucus, suppose this is your stomach, right? And inside the inner lining of the stomach, this is your inner lining of the stomach, right? So the mucus when secreted covers your inner lining of the stomach. It will cover the stomach from inside. It will surround the inner lining of the stomach. Understood? Why it surrounds the inner lining of the stomach? Because after that HCl will be produced. When HCl will be produced, so now HCl is produced here. So before HCl is produced, mucus covers the inner lining of the stomach so that the stomach is not damaged because of HCl. Because HCl is a strong acid. Understood? So mucus protects the stomach from HCl. Understood? So that is the function of mucus. Now, what is the function of HCl? HCl has two functions. The first function of HCl is to disinfect the food. Means the food we consume, right? If there are certain particles which are harmful to us, right? The HCl will kill them. That is called disinfection. So the HCl, there are two functions of HCl. The first function of HCl is to disinfect the food, right? And the second function of HCl is to make the condition alkaline. Alkaline means basic condition. To create basic condition. The second function of the HCl is to make the condition acidic, not basic. Acidic condition. Understood? This is the two function of your HCl. Now, once the HCl disinfects the food and makes the condition acidic, now comes the role of pepsin. So pepsin is an enzyme which requires acidic condition to work properly. So that acidic environment is already created by HCl. Understood? Is that clear? So now pepsin has a very good environment to do its work. So now pepsin will do its work. What does pepsin does? This pepsin will break down the proteins which are present in your food and it will convert the protein into what? Amino acids. So this is, proteins are complex and amino acids are simpler. So the pepsin present in the gastric gland, secreted by the gastric gland, the pepsin will break down or digest protein and convert into amino acid. So this is the thing which happens in the stomach. Now once all these phenomena are over, now the food finally reaches the small intestine. So the third is small intestine. The third is small intestine. So in this case, in the small intestine, not only the small intestine but two other organs are also involved in this case. What are those organs? One is your liver and the other is your pancreas. Understood? Why these are involved? We will understand. So in the small intestine, once the food is digested in the stomach, the food from the stomach comes in the small intestine. Right? So suppose this is your stomach, right? And the food is coming in the, suppose, small intestine. So the food which is coming from the stomach, since the condition in the stomach was acidic, so the food which is coming from the stomach in the small intestine, the food is still acidic in condition. The food will be still acidic. But for the digestion of the food in the small intestine, the conditions should be alkaline. The condition should be alkaline or basic. So who will make the condition of small intestine alkaline or basic? So the one which will make the condition of the small intestine alkaline is something which will be secreted from the pancreas, which is your pancreatic enzyme, pancreatic enzymes. So these pancreatic enzymes which is secreted from the pancreas will enter into the small intestine and will make the condition of the small intestine alkaline. Why the condition of the small intestine should be made alkaline? So that the enzymes present here should work properly. Understood? For that case. So the pancreatic enzyme makes the condition of small intestine alkaline. And what is the thing which is secreted from the liver? From the liver, the thing which is secreted is bile juice. So the bile juice, the main function of the bile juice is something else. But in making the condition alkaline, bile juice also helps pancreatic enzyme to make the condition alkaline. It helps. Bile juice helps the pancreatic enzyme. Right? But the major function of bile juice is something else. What is the major function of bile juice? The major function of this bile juice is, what does it do? In the food there are fat particles also, fats which are still not digested, because fat is not digested in your mouth, fat is not digested in your stomach, right? So the fat in the food is still present, and now the food is in the small intestine. So in the small intestine, fat is digested. So who will digest the fat? The bile juice will help to digest the fat. How? See, the fat globules, means the fat is present in the form of large fat globules, right? So these large fat globules cannot be digested properly because of their size, because they are bigger in size. So the bile juice will break down these large fat globules into small globules. Understood or not? So suppose this is your large fat globule, so it will break down it into smaller fat globules. Is that clear? That is the major function of bile juice. Now once the fat globules are broken down into smaller globules, in the small intestine there are two enzymes present. Understood? In the small intestine there are two enzymes present. What are those enzymes? So in the small intestine, there are two enzymes present. One is your lipase and the other is your trypsin. Is that clear? So what is the function of lipase? So the large fat globules which were converted to small fat globules by bile juice. Those small fat globules will be digested by lipase. Means who digests the fat in the small intestine? It is lipase. So lipase digests fat in your small intestine. So what is the role of trypsin then? So in the stomach, pepsin digests the protein, but some amount of protein are still left which are not digested, and it enters the small intestine. So the left out proteins which have entered the small intestine now will be digested by trypsin, because trypsin also digests protein. Is that clear? Trypsin also digests protein but in the small intestine, and pepsin was digesting protein but in the stomach. Is that clear? Is it clear? So this is the digestion process in the small intestine. Now once the digestion is completed, so there is a general question asked. What is the general question asked? Where does the complete digestion takes place? This is the question which is generally asked. So where does the complete digestion takes place? Complete digestion takes place in the small intestine. Understood? The complete digestion of the food takes place in the small intestine. Is that clear? So as soon as the digestion is completed in the small intestine, now the food enters. As soon as the digestion is completed in the small intestine, so in the small intestine, suppose this is your small intestine. So in the small intestine, there are certain finger-like projection present inside, in the inside surface of the small intestine. There are certain this finger-like projection. What are this finger-like projection which are present in the small intestine? These are called villi. What are these called? These are called villi. So these villi on the outer side, these villis on the outer side, these villis are connected with blood vessels. Blood vessels. Understood? So whenever the digested food, whatever is your digested food, this is, if suppose these are your digested food, right? So these digested food after the completion of digestion will be absorbed by the villi. And after the villi absorbs this digested food, the villi will transfer the food to the blood vessel which is in contact with the villi. Now once the food digested will enter the blood vessel through the villi, now the blood vessel will carry these food particles to different cells of body, and this way the digested food are transferred to the different parts and cells of the body. Understood? So the villi here has two functions. Villi increases the surface area. This is the first function. See, if there is a straight line and if there is a line which is present in this manner, what do you think which have greater area to absorb? So if this will be stretched, it will be something like this, right? So this has more area to absorb, right? So when villi is present in a finger-like projection, what does it do? It increases the surface area for absorption. Understood? So this is the function of villi. It increases the surface area for absorption. Understood? It absorbs the food, and not only the food, it also absorbs water. It also absorbs water. And once it absorbs, it transfers the digested food which is absorbed by the villi into the blood vessel. And this in the blood vessel, what is present in the blood vessel? In the blood vessel there is blood. So the food mixes with the blood and is transferred to the different parts of the body and different cells of the body, right? So now once the digestion is completed in the small intestine, so small intestine, this is your small intestine. So not all food is digested and not all food is used. Some part of the food is still undigested. Some part of the food is still undigested which will not be absorbed by the body. So those food are called undigested food. So the undigested food from the small intestine will be transferred to the large intestine, which will be unabsorbed food. So the unabsorbed food will be transferred from the small intestine to the large intestine. Now once the undigested food enters the large intestine, once the undigested food enters the large intestine, in the large intestine, villi is also present in the large intestine. But in the large intestine, the villi only absorbs water and nothing else. In the large intestine, since the unabsorbed food is now present in the large intestine, which will not be absorbed, so in the large intestine, the villi only absorbs a large amount of water from the unabsorbed food. And the unabsorbed food then is excreted out of the body, means removed out of the body through the anus. So anus is the organ of the body from where the solid waste of our body is removed. Understood? So whatever is your undigested food which is present in the large intestine, in the large intestine, the villi will absorb water from the undigested food and the undigested food will be removed out of the body with the help of the organ called anus. Is that clear? So this is your complete digestion. So the complete digestion of humans is divided into 5 steps. The first is ingestion. Whatever I explained to you, everything is present in these 5 steps. So ingestion means intake of food that I explained to you. So first we have to intake our food, right? Second is digestion. So in digestion, the digestion in the mouth, the digestion in the small intestine, and the digestion in the mouth, stomach, and small intestine. These 3 will be present in the step called digestion. Whatever enzymes were present in these 3 parts and whatever is their role, that will be present in your digestion. So once the digestion is completed, after that will come ingestion, digestion, and then comes what is the next? Next is ingestion, digestion, and the next is absorption. Absorption, here you have to mention about villi of small intestine. How does it absorbs? Right? I explained you already. Number 4th step is assimilation. Assimilation. Now what is assimilation? Assimilation is nothing but after when the food is absorbed in the small intestine by the villi and transferred to the blood vessel, and the blood present in the blood vessel takes the food to different cells. Now when the cell receives the food particles, it will assimilate it inside the cell. Assimilate means it will take the food which it is getting, right, and it will keep it with the cell, right? Why will it keep the food with itself? So that if in future if the cell has to do something like if the cell has to produce energy, or suppose if the cell has to repair damage, right, or if the cell has to make new tissues. So for these 3 functions, the cell will use these foods. So if the cell is not using the food which it is getting instantly, it will store it within itself. Understood? So that in future it can use it for these 3 purposes. That is called assimilation. And the 5th is Egestion. Egestion also known as excretion. Egestion or excretion. So egestion or excretion means removal of the undigested food from the large intestine through the organ called anus, which I already explained. So these are the 5 steps of digestion. Is that clear? So after the complete digestion process, you should know 3 things. What are the complex substances which we consume and what are they converted into? They will be converted into simpler molecules. What are the complex and what are the simpler molecules? So the first one is complex sugar. Complex sugar which is converted into simple sugar. Simple sugar. Let's say for example, complex sugar will be your starch. So starch is converted into glucose. Starch is converted into glucose. So you have seen here कि starch is a complex sugar and when it is converted into simpler sugar it will be converted into glucose. So one starch has many glucose, right? That is why it is known as complex and they are known as simpler. What is the second thing that you should know? The second is protein. So when protein is digested, so protein is your complex and it is converted into simpler, which is amino acids. So whenever protein is digested, which is a complex biomolecule, right, it will be converted into simpler substances like amino acid. And the third is your fat. So when the fat is digested, it is converted into 2 things which are simpler. One is your fatty acid plus glycerol. Fatty acid plus glycerol. So fat will be broken down. Fat is a complex which will be broken down into simpler substances called fatty acid and glycerol. So these are all 3 complexes and these are all 3 simpler molecules in which the complex will be converted. So you should remember this. Sometimes the question also comes from this part also. Clear?